My parents were never happy. I think they just got married because they thought that's what people did, and it never occurred to them that they weren't compatible. Growing up, my dad always seemed depressed. He was a good dad, but he always seemed really sad. He asked my mom to divorce multiple times, and she said no. She knew he cheated, but didn't particularly care. She didn't want a divorce because of what people would say and because she didn't want to cut back on her lifestyle at all. When my younger sister was 18, he finally left her for another woman. She was devastated and humiliated. It was pretty cliche because she was 15 years younger, beautiful, and my dad is rich. Honestly, I kind of hate her just for being the other woman, and because my mom is so insecure and she made it 100% worse. But my dad is so happy, so I'm trying to forgive him. It's been 6 years, they are married, and I know she is here to stay. I'm getting married, and a lot of people said I shouldn't invite her, and I'm a bad daughter. I am trying to be understanding, so she is invited, but not allowed to be in pictures. My mom desperately does not want her there and has been crying and guilting me. My mom's self-esteem is crap, and she has so many body issues. I told my dad that his wife could come if she wore plain navy blue, so absolutely not attention-seeking, and I guess to make her less beautiful, so my mom doesn't feel so crappy. My dad said I was being unfair, and what about his feelings? His wife said if it could be black, she would agree. She apparently hates navy. I feel like it is my wedding, and I'm being gracious by even letting her come, and she has plenty of fancy events where she gets to wear what she wants. Not being the most beautiful woman in the room is not going to kill her for one night. My dad still feels that I'm being insensitive. You're the a-hole, but my dad is so happy, so I'm trying to forgive him. Forgive him for what? He tried to leave multiple times. Your mother refused him. He was depressed. He waited until his last kid, I assume from the way it was written, was 18, an adult, and then he left. Your father's done nothing wrong. Your mother kept him in an unhappy relationship because she didn't want people to gossip, and she didn't want to give up her lifestyle. She kept your father unhappy and depressed for selfish reasons. So why are you needing to forgive him? Your mother's issues are her own. She needs therapy. Your father and his wife shouldn't have to pay the price for your mother's issues. Your father shouldn't have to carry your mother's weight anymore. You're the a-hole, seriously. I'm being gracious by even letting her come. You're really not. If you're this determined she spend every second she's there this aware of just how unwelcome she is, just spare everyone the petty nonsense and don't invite her. Granted, you'll have to accept that probably means your dad's not coming either. But maybe that'll help get it through your head once and for all, that you can't push all the blame for your parents' dysfunctional relationship onto the person who just happened to show up at the point where your dad finally realized he didn't actually need your mom's permission to leave and quit putting even in the bare minimum effort. Your mom is the a-hole, for your information. This woman is not your dad's affair partner. It's his wife and your stepmom. On your own admission, the marriage was dead and your dad was miserable and wanted to leave for years. Had they not met, they may still both be miserable. Time to put boundaries up with your mom and stop caving to allow her misery to dictate everyone else's life. I, female 25, got married 2 months ago, July, to my boyfriend, male 26, now husband, of 12 years. My brother-in-law, husband's brother, and his wife, sister-in-law, got married 3 months before us. Originally, our weddings would have been further apart, but virus hit and my brother-in-law and sister-in-law had to postpone their wedding, so it was close to ours. We had a beautiful ceremony in a little church in the town our families live in. After the ceremony, we went outside and our guests congratulated us. I was so excited, and I honestly couldn't tell who wore what, but I saw that some of our friends seemed mad. We wanted a big picture of us together with our guests, and while the photographer coordinated who would stand where, my sister-in-law tried to stand next to me. That was when I saw that she was wearing a white dress. I was shocked, but didn't know what to say, so I just looked the other way. But my maid of honor smiled at her and said quite loudly, "Oh, what a nice white dress." My sister-in-law kind of gasped and went, "That's tan." I just said nothing. We wanted pictures with our close family, and as it was brother-in-law and sister-in-law's turn, she again went to stand next to me. But my brother-in-law told her to stand next to my husband, and he would stand next to me. I didn't even look at her. Later, we arrived at our venue, and I could hear our friends talk about the white dress and how disrespectful my sister-in-law was. But she couldn't have heard it because they took the wrong road and weren't there yet. Two of our friends even talked about tripping and getting red wine on her dress, and I still just said nothing. No one did anything to my sister-in-law or said anything else to her, and they left shortly after dinner because they still had a long way to drive home. 2 days later, we visited my in-laws, and my mother-in-law took me aside to tell me the dress my sister-in-law was wearing was tan, not white, and my sister-in-law is extremely hurt about what my maid of honor said and felt shamed and excluded. My mother-in-law asked me if I really thought the dress was white, and I said yes. Furthermore, I told her I think it was a totally inappropriate dress because I know that my sister-in-law's wedding dress was the exact same color, and she would have hated having someone at her own wedding wearing something similar, even if it was off-white. Nearly every dress right now is off-white, and she must have known that our guests would be talking about her, and not positively if she showed up like this. My mother-in-law said I can't really believe that my sister-in-law would do something like this on purpose, and insinuated that I am a total a-hole for this, and for not stopping our friends from thinking badly of my sister-in-law. I'm still getting comments about this, so am I the a-hole? Proof is in the pictures. If it was a very light tan, it is going to look white in the outside light. Show those to mother-in-law and see what she says. Not the a-hole, because you didn't do anything on the day of, and I won't say a-hole for your maid of honor's comment. So if I'm reading this correctly, literally the only thing you actually did was say yes when your mother-in-law asked you point blank after the wedding if you thought sister-in-law's dress was white, and you said that you thought sister-in-law's choice of dress was inappropriate. At the wedding, your maid of honor made one comment, but other than that, no one said a word to your sister-in-law about her dress. You said nothing at the wedding. You said nothing at the reception. You just minded your own business. You didn't pitch a bridezilla hissy. You didn't throw her out. You thought about doing stuff or letting someone else do stuff, but you actually did nothing. So I'm really confused as to what you did that you would owe anyone an apology for. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. It's sister-in-law's own fault if other guests at the wedding thought badly of her for what she did. You didn't react one way or the other. It's not up to you to manage how people, reasonably, feel about her behavior, and mother-in-law's putting it on you is weird. Edit. The fact that she kept trying to stand next to you is also a little sus, and suggests it was intentional. My wife Kim, 36 female, and I, 33 male, just got married, but we've been together for 7 years. We've been engaged the past 3 years. I've met a lot of her family during our relationship. With the exception of her parents and one aunt, the rest have been polite but aloof when I've seen them. Her parents and aunt have always been very nice, warm, and welcoming, and treated me like family once it became clear we were serious about each other. The first couple years, it didn't bother me. What did start to bother me was when we were living together and engaged, and holiday cards would be sent, and they'd be addressed only to Kim, whereas her brothers' and sisters' cards were addressed to her siblings and their spouses. Her parents had invited me to some outings with the family, only to have the invitation rescinded because aunts, uncles, cousins didn't want non-family members there. Kim would get invited to birthday parties or cookouts, and I wouldn't be, and that's fair enough since it was their parties, and they get to pick their guests. The only times I've had to interact with them was at things hosted by Kim, her parents, or the good aunt. The straw that broke the camel's back for me was last year. My mother-in-law sadly passed away. Come the funeral, I was not allowed to sit with Kim. When the surviving family members were read aloud, I was not listed, yet her sister's new husband she'd been with less than 2 years was. And other new additions that had been around less time than I have, and they were seated in the family section. I didn't say anything about it, but afterwards, Kim asked if she had heard right or if I had been left out off the list. We visited her dad that night, and he apologized to us. He let his 2 sisters handle all the arrangements for the funeral, and they had made the list, and their reasoning was that I wasn't family since Kim and I weren't married. We didn't raise a stink about it, and just let it be. Now we've recently had our wedding, and it was great. I'm stoked to finally be married to the woman I love. When we were making our guest list, Kim asked about the family members that had always been aloof to me. I told her that if she wanted to invite them, I'd support her in that, but I wouldn't interact with them. She wanted to keep peace, so she invited them. At the reception, it was like a switch had flipped in them. They were bubbly, friendly, and kept trying to hug me and welcome me to the family, but I ignored them in favor of talking to friends and family. At one point, the aunts cornered Kim and I when we were going around thanking people for coming, and asked Kim why she married a prick. I told them I just didn't want anything to do with people who basically ignored me until we were married, and Kim agreed with me. They gossiped about it some more the rest of the evening, and some days after on Facebook posts. Initially, I didn't think I was doing anything wrong, but I do feel bad that it affected Kim too. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. They are allowed to be old-fashioned, and you are allowed to not deal with them. Old-fashioned? It seems plain rude to me. They are obviously a couple for the long run, even before marriage. You can't treat people as second-grade citizens for ages, and then all of a sudden be warm and welcoming just because the person finally lives according to your beliefs. It's terribly rude and judgmental. People who withhold love and respect as a weapon are manipulative and cruel. Who would want to marry into such a dynamic? Not the a-hole. People don't get to treat you like a non-person for 7 years and then pretend that never happened. If you were in a new relationship of less than a year, sure, maybe some exceptions would make sense. But that's not your situation. They had 7 years to welcome you. Their loss. I, 28 male, got married on 14 June. Me and my wife, 26 female, have been in a relationship for 6 years, married for 3 months already, and through those years have met most of my family, including the aunt, my parents, and other relatives welcomed her. While this aunt, 59 female, has been giving her the stink eye the very first day they met. I already know my aunt, the most religious, deeply conservative, holier-than-thou person you'll ever meet. And I've learned to avoid her and ignore everything she says. So I decided to inform my wife, girlfriend at the time, to avoid that aunt at all costs. And she agreed. No major issues then. Then virus arrived. Both me and my wife lost our job. We worked in the hotel restaurant industry, so we decided to take online freelance jobs, and then we both gained weight. Now, fast forward to 2022. My wife and I endured through the virus and decided to make our own business and move back to my hometown 900 miles away from the city. Before starting the business, I wanted to marry her first. I proposed, and she said yes. We made plans, and initially it was just me and relatives, aunt not invited. But you know how the parents are. From a small party of 9, it became 50. It was all going great until the aunt suddenly showed up. My mom invited her without telling me, and I prepared for the worst. I already know how she'll behave, but I forgot to prep my wife about it. At least she was 5 tables away, I said to myself. But the entire time she was loud about how we both gained weight, and then proceeded to go to the in-laws table, and then talked, to make sure my wife hears, about it's the wife's duties to take care about the husband's health. And if my husband was sent to the hospital for his health, I can find a new man. Also, if you let yourself go, then you failed as a wife. And a whole lot of crap about religion. She's Catholic while father-in-law was Protestant. Politics. She's far right while both father-in-law was leftist. I've tuned her out until I noticed my wife shaking. I asked her what's wrong, and she said, "I can't take this." I was clueless. Then I saw my aunt not on her table. Then I stood up and yelled, "Are we really doing this right now?" And then I proceeded to yell out all of her crap. I was about to vent out more of my frustrations on her, but finally I was able to control myself. I then told her to leave and never speak to me, my wife, or the in-laws ever again. Most of my relatives agree with me, but told me to forgive my aunt, while there's a minority who says I've gone too far and ruined my own wedding. I felt that I did nothing wrong. I was just defending my wife, and it was a bonus that I released some of my childhood frustrations at my aunt in the process. Was I in the wrong here? P.S. In-laws told me I did the right thing, and they just didn't want to cause a scene. Not the a-hole. Horrible people act that way because people who aren't horrible don't call them out. Good on you. There's a line in Yeats' Second Coming about how the worst are full of righteous certainty, and the best are full of doubt. Don't doubt yourself. Not the a-hole for kicking her out, but you're the a-hole for letting your mother and family take over your guest list in the first place. It's not a matter of you know how parents are, with your shoulders shrugging off responsibility. It's a matter of you having the duty to be on guard, to make sure that your family doesn't ruin the wedding for your wife and you. It's your job to handle your family. After you let your mother inflate the guest list so drastically without opposition, it's no wonder she added your aunt. You should have stopped her before she even dreamed of crossing that line. Not the a-hole. Maybe poor delivery, but it's over now and you had the right idea. Kick her out and out of your lives. Glad you stood up for your wife. Rarely seen here, and your family. Seems like wedding wasn't ruined by you, it was saved by you. Mom shouldn't have invited her without asking you first anyway. I thought the old generations were supposed to have better manners than that. My younger brother James is getting married to Lisa, and they are planning on having some unconventional aspects to their ceremony, like Lisa wearing a wedding dress with a black pattern. She expressed to me that she wants to wear a wedding veil that my great-grandma wore, and so has every woman on my side of the family since, including me, for their wedding. Lisa said she wanted to wear something from James's side because she's not really close to her own immediate family. I was initially delighted to hear she wanted to, but then Lisa said that she plans on permanently shortening the veil because that would feel more like her and feel like it's a joint union of her background and James's. I got really upset because not only is it completely defacing the veil to me, but it essentially ruins the veil for anyone else, like my young daughter who might want to have the veil on her future wedding day. Lisa told me that it's selfish to not allow her to do this one small thing, and stormed out. I got a text from James calling me an a-hole for getting her upset over a small thing. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Who borrows someone else's family heirloom and permanently alters it so it's of little use to anyone else? And how is your brother mad at you? It sounds like he and Lisa are perfect for one another. I was all ready to chastise you for not letting her feel like part of your family, but cutting the veil? What the duck? I can't imagine that would go down well if she was your twin sister, let alone an in-law. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. I absolutely get the use of the veil, but altering it is something else entirely. Your sister-in-law and brother are the a-holes for being selfish, then having the audacity to call you selfish just because you won't allow them to permanently ruin a family tradition.